He wants to hit the ground running as soon as he gets sworn into office, January 20th. The most important things to me are the nomination of Kevin Hassett and Jameson Greer. Those are the names that were floated last week for USTR, which is going to be most critical for putting the tariffs into place. We know we have the Treasury Secretary into place. Some of these other names, whether it's RFK Jr. or Matt Gaetz, and those guys are sort of fallen by the wayside or will be contentious as they go through, as I imagine Kash Patel will be as well. But I would say keep our eyes on the prize, focus on USTR, and see also that they're potentially telegraphing to businesses to prepare for these tariffs in advance, as opposed to waiting for January 20th and an implementation date of additional tariffs. That's maybe the biggest thing for me right now with the early naming of these nominees.
Let's take each of those in kind. Let's start with Kevin Hassett. He was in the first Trump administration. He came up with this thing called the Hassett Principle when it came to tariffs, sort of focusing on where those tariffs might be applied, who might be exempt from them. How does his work change if he's now a part of this next administration? I mean, I look at just sort of the panoply of people that the president-elect has picked to be on his economic team, and we've seen kind of the fighting early on before they were even named, and one wonders if that's going to move over into the cabinet room as well. But sticking with Kevin Hassett, what role does he play in shaping the direction of Donald Trump's economic policy in this next term?
The most important thing to me right now is that he has a relationship with lawmakers on Capitol Hill that exceeds that of Scott Bessent or Howard Lutnick. And I think when I am worried about next year is obviously the tax bill and then the tariffs that are part of that, in that Donald Trump has said the tariffs will pay for the $4.6 trillion extension of the existing tax rates. So when when Hassett is up on the Hill trying to talk with staff and get this tax bill written, one of the key components that he's going to be involved in is getting them to agree to include tariffs in the tax bill. That's a very big deal. That's the only way to score it so that tax legislation can be physically offset in the same piece of legislation by the tariffs. So I think Hassett will play a really important role there, as will the USTR.
Henrietta, what's the role of the United States Senate here in confirming some of these nominees, particularly some of the more contentious ones that may be coming down?
You know, they were pretty much already trying to compel the Trump administration to, give them names that can get through quickly. We know that historically you get through, the Secretary of State, Defense, and Treasury pretty quickly, just days after the president is sworn in. So they're trying to, sort out the wheat from the chaff as early as possible so they can keep their eyes on the prize, get started on the president's agenda as soon as he gets sworn into office. So I think a lot of their backroom discussion is trying to say, look, thank you for giving us these names. Some of these guys cannot get through. I think it's underappreciated how slim the Republican margin is going into next year. We have a number of senators who are going to be up for re-election or potentially retiring or have come in as freshmen who will be willing to challenge the president on these nominations, as we've already seen.